go drop like rain, nigga, watch me hit those trees.
Hey, it's me, Mino, and I'm back with a video you probably could have predicted if you watched the Sasuke Retrieval Arc video, and if you didn't, you can go check that out after this. But today we are running down my extra thoughts on the Sound 5 and ranking the crew from least to most in terms of battle power. And though some of these entries may be exactly where you expected them to be, I think that I switch it up and sauce it down enough that it's well worth the watch. And as an added measure, I'll talk about a few different matchups I think would have been interesting. But with the explanation out of the way, let's do this. Starting with what I assume is the second most obvious of this list, Jirobo. And don't get me wrong, every member of the Sound 5 is an absolute problem for most ninja, but compared to his teammates, Jirobo is much further down on the totem, and most of that is related to his arsenal of non-jutsu, most infamously things like the shoulder charge, which, even if he's using chakra to amp every stat he has, wouldn't be considered ninjutsu, in the same way that the lariat isn't ninjutsu. It's just an attack that utilizes the speed of A and B, and sometimes the chakra cloak, which the cloak would be ninjutsu, but just slapping that on a physical attack doesn't make it ninjutsu. And the one ninjutsu he does show off, the Earth Dome, is actually one of the worst and most cumbersome jutsu seen in the series. And sure, he can catch multiple people and drain their chakra, but that's a slow process. And while they're in the dome, we never see Jirobo attack them. And the worst part of it all is that now both his hands are occupied, and for a battle, that's kind of a wild nerf, especially since it's not even like the dome is invincible. And on top of that, Jirobo isn't the most durable. In fact, Choji flat out kills him with a punch. And yeah, it's amped by butterfly mode, so it's no joke, but who else ever dies to a physical punch that didn't even go through them? And with all that being said, Jirobo loses to every other Sound member. And I think the only person that may have had a tougher time from the Leaf Squad would have been Kiba. But since there's not a lot to talk about with Jirobo, let's move on to the fourth spot on the list, Sakon and Ukon. And I know I'm catching flack for this, but I don't care. Sakon and Ukon's ability is what makes people think they're stronger than they are. And the ability to basically fuse bodies is pretty cool, but it's not nearly as powerful as it sounds. Even when you're talking about taijutsu, being able to use multiple extra limbs at once to fight is an advantage over someone about as strong as you are. But it's not like either one is doing Lee-level taijutsu or even hits as hard as someone like Naruto, who at this point hits hard, but he's not even touching Choji's hit damage. And fusing to your opponent's body sounds good for about 0.2 seconds until you realize now you're subject to whatever pain this person is experiencing, including the pain you put them in. So the only real reason to do that is to stall until they realize they can just hurt themselves like Kiba. And even if they never realize that, the killing blow in Sakon and Ukon versus Kiba was gonna come down to a kunai, and you know how I feel about ninja tools. But when it comes to matchups, I'm gonna be honest, Sakon and Ukon beat Choji, Kiba, and Shikamaru. They won outright against Kiba, and Choji has nothing to deal with dual opponents. And I think Shikamaru would have been able to deal with the duo up to the first stage of Curse Mark, but after that, all bets are off, and Sakon and Ukon kind of rip him apart. And even within the Sound 5, I think Sakon and Ukon win against Jirobo pretty easily, but just barely lose to Tayuya, because I'm not entirely sure whether or not the Cone brothers could glob onto Tayuya's flute monsters, but even if both of them took one at a time, Tayuya still has her flute and her genjutsu. They could try to get Tayuya first, but she's a long-range fighter and they have to make contact with her, so I doubt that happens. And speaking of Tayuya, she's number 3. And I want to specifically mention how Tayuya and Sakon and Ukon seemingly get the smallest amp from second stage Curse Mark, and I think that that's because their abilities don't really utilize the Curse Mark. Like, it may up their strength and give them a very small durability upgrade, but Sakon and Ukon don't start to fuse better or more, and Tayuya controls summonings that don't have the Curse Mark, so they don't get that amp. And as for her matchups with the Leaf, it looks a bit wonky, because I'd say she only beats Shikamaru and Kiba, and I'm only basing that off the fact that she did beat Shikamaru, and I think that Kiba's three-headed dog would only be able to handle one flute monster at a time, and I already explained why I think Sakon and Ukon lose to her, and Jirobo gets whopped by one flute monster, so let's just move to number 2. And by process of elimination and common sense, you may have guessed Kidomaru was my pick for the second strongest. And just based off of his handling of the entire Leaf Squad at once, because with the exception of Naruto, Kidomaru caught all of them within a few moves, and even being caught off guard by Naruto from behind, he still blocks the attacks and does not take any damage until all the way at the end of his fight with Neji, where he dies. So I'm not even giving him high durability here. He was just an offensive monster. And I stand by the fact that Neji was the only one who could beat him. And I'd even go as far to say he'd win against all the other Sound 4 members except one. And of course that's Kimimaro, and I really don't have to tell you why, but I will. His unique ability to use his bones in almost any fashion covers a lot of ground in terms of offense and defense. And the speed, strength, and durability boost he receives from the curse mark is by far the largest. And the fact that he can go pretty evenly with a even slightly QB amp Naruto speaks volumes as to why Orochimaru thought this was his perfect vessel until he laid eyes on Sasuke. And speaking of Sasuke, how well do you think Kimimaro does against a second stage curse mark Sasuke? Like, let's replace Naruto with Kimimaro in the first Valley of the End fight. I'm on the fence as to whether or not I think he would put up a good fight, but I don't think he would win at all. And that's even if he was healthy, because up to that point in the story, we don't see anyone fight quite like Naruto and Sasuke do. Not even Orochimaru and Hiruzen fight that hard, and they are at that point the pinnacle of power in the series. And Kimimaro may be strong, but I highly doubt he can match that height in any stat or scenario. But I don't know. Let me know what you think down in the comments. But as for his crew, he beats all of the Sound 4 at once, so he's as far ahead of everyone as Jirobo is behind. And again, this is Orochimaru's elite squad, handpicked to do his bidding. Just off of that premise, the Sound have to be at least a threat to almost anyone, because this is 5 ninja, not a specialized 3-man squad that's designed to do missions efficiently. This is a unit specifically made to take on the entire platoon of guards and just high-level ninja around the Hokage period. So I want to make it clear that the Sound being beaten by the Leaf Squad does not mean that they are anything less than Jonin level, and only 2 members were outright beaten. The others had to face not only multiple opponents, but they were some of the strongest ninja of this generation. So, placement aside, I still think the Sound deserves some respect. And with that, we'll wrap it up. So, just to recap, 5 is Jirobo, 4 is Sakon and Ukon, 3 is Tayuya, 2 is Kidomaru, and 1 is Kimimaro. And that's it. That's all I got. That's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked the video, leave a like, and if you want more content, subscribe and check out my channel. And until next time, peace.
That thunder on me clap, make a nigga think before he act. Have a nigga dying on his back, then we double back. Shooters leaving rubber where you at. That's why niggas never wanna match.